Hey guys, welcome to the Youth Fitness Podcast. Topics on youth fitness with a focus on doing what's best for kids. Brought to you by the Martin family, the developers of the Brand X Method, and the Athlete Coach Network.
Hi, we're here today for another Youth Fitness Podcast, and we have the special honor of having Farran Mackay from Virtuous Coach Development here with us today. And I'd love for you, Farran, to give us a little background on yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it, because as I remember, it's very impressive.
Oh, first of all, thank you very much, Mikki and Jeff, for having me on. It's a privilege to be able to have these discussions with you and to connect and to share and learn from each other. Yeah, so my business is Virtuous Coach Development. My mission is to make the functional fitness ecosystem more sustainable, specifically making sure that it's sustainable through making coaches and affiliates healthier. And we do that by making sure that coaches can deliver classes and deliver an exceptional member experience to whatever the members need. And this is the way that I really do believe that we will be able to sustain our ecosystem, we will be able to grow, and we'll be able to affect more people's lives in a positive manner. And in the turn, hopefully get more people healthy and fit. My path here has been not a direct one. First thing I will say is that I have a habit of doing a sport and loving it so much that I want to teach other people what the sport is. So this adventure started over 30 years ago with sailing, which I'd done already for 10 years and got the opportunity to teach people to sail, and I loved it. And then later on, I discovered snowboarding. And so, yeah, I then coached people, taught people how to snowboard. And then life took a bit of a twist, and obviously time and careers took over. And at that time, I was working in a high school, middle bar school, and you call it also, I think, middle school as well in America. So from the ages of 12 to 18. And I was a teacher, and I discovered CrossFit. And I still remember my first experience. I walked in and I was hit by this wall of sound, of sights I'd never seen before, half naked people doing things with barbells that I didn't recognize. The actual workout of the day was Fran. And so I ended up questioning all my life choices while doing this workout, and afterwards going, yeah, I want to do this again. And so I discovered the world of CrossFit, and I also became then a CrossFit coach. At the same time, in my career in the middle school and high school, I also became a teacher developer and a teacher educator, where I supported other teachers becoming better in their craft. I was also given the opportunity to do research in this field. And so I got the privilege of specializing in how can I support teachers in making long-term positive changes to their teaching practices, especially after attending a course or a professional development session. And then the affiliate where I was beginning to coach, they were beginning to grow, and they're like, look, we actually need some help in developing our other coaches. And so I couldn't say no. And so that's how I started my journey with coach development in particular. And then about 5 years ago, life presented another twist, and I decided to move completely into the space of coach development and functional fitness. And from there, I've just been helping hundreds of coaches and affiliate owners from around the world in trying to deliver an exceptional member experience. So I don't focus on the teaching, seeing, correcting side. I focus on, let's look at the member in front of us and let's look at what they need, what they want, and try and deliver it. So that's the short version of my very long story.
I love it. And as it turns out, that's what people want. Is an exceptional member experience.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the coaching is as an aside. Obviously, we feel pretty committed to excellent coaching, but I think what you're doing is much more directly affecting the success of affiliates. So good. That's a great path. I love it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, and it kind of matches my own journey as a teacher initially, where I thought the content I was teaching was the most important thing. Yeah, that was the only thing that was important. And over certainly those first few years, I realized that isn't the most important thing. The content is important. It has context. But unless you can support the person in front of you to take the next steps in their growth, whatever it is, then it doesn't matter what the content is. It doesn't matter what I'm trying to get them to do. And at the end of the day, our purpose as coaches is not necessarily, not necessarily to teach somebody how to do a bar muscle up. Our purpose is to help them create a healthier lifestyle filled with movement.
Yep. Yes. Some of the things we've been thinking about in talking with you today. Something is wrong with my mouth.
It's okay.
Is that when we mentor, and we mentor hundreds of gyms around the world as well, to work with kids and run kids programs. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we find very challenging, and I wonder how you deal with it, is laying out a great plan for people. Here's the steps. First we investigate, we ask some questions so that we know what the starting points are. Where are you today? So we know we can track where they're going and the success of the work with them. But we find that often people have their own reasons, millions of reasons, for not actually taking the steps or doing the work. And that's just human behavior, right? That's classic. How do we get them to do the work and be accountable so that at the end of the line, we can all get to that goal of changing lives, whether it's children, teenagers, or adults. It's the same thing. They have to take the steps that we as mentors know are most likely to lead to real success that they want. What are your strategies?
That's a very good question. So I think I first spend a lot of time, and a lot of people wonder why. I spend a lot of time digging deep into people's values and their missions, their vision, and also creating a mission statement for them so that everything after that we do can be tied back to it. Yeah, we're taking these steps because it gets you closer to this bit in your mission statement. And if we keep reflecting on that, that can be our Northern Star, our guiding light as such with everything we do. And of course, I know that if they do A, B, C, D, E straight away, that they will already have a much easier life. But as you said, human nature is not always open to ideas or doing things a different way. So a lot of what I work on is actually also behavioral change, is getting them to start moving in a direction that will help them be successful. I do not generally offer templates. I know in my head what the steps are, but I help them develop the thing that they need. So they have full ownership of it. I can give them examples, be a mentor in that sense if they want, or be a teacher, so explain certain concepts if that's what they need. But generally, most of my role is just as a coach trying to help them figure out what direction they should go into with the information on the table. And yeah, sometimes I have to give people a kick up the ass going, guys, why haven't you done this thing that was meant to be done 2 weeks ago? Yeah. But that's where we keep going back to, this is your mission. Yeah. How come didn't get done? Oh, you got distracted by that thing, that silvery, shiny thing over there that had nothing to do with your mission. Okay, let's try and regroup again. So that's generally my strategy, my general approach when it comes to whether it's affiliate or coaches.
I love that idea. When we're mentoring gyms, one of the things that you see people want is a template. Like, just give me the template for the class SOP, or give me the template for this. And that template would be great. I can give you that template, but the problem and what we've run up against is telling people the actual work of creating what would work in your gym is good, solid work. Mm-hmm. We want you to do that work. So I can tell you the steps you should be taking, but then you need to apply yourself to how those steps should be applied in your gym. And
yeah,
it's so individualized, right? It's like anything, but it is really, truly, you can't give them everything without knowing all those pieces and having those discussions.
It's like telling somebody who wants to be more fit, where you could say, you need to eat better, you need to do this, with exercise, and you need to get this kind of sleep. Well, that's the template. They actually have to need to do the work of what kind of nutrition they're going to have, what kind of fitness they're going to be doing, and how much recovery they're going to be getting.
I think that's a very, very good example, Jeff, that it is essentially, and you do the same. For me, it's important that people understand the frameworks that we're operating in. What are the key concepts and how are things tied together? And they themselves then can mix and match what is important for them and their coaching and their affiliate and their clients, customers. Because at the end of the day, and this is what's beautiful about the whole space, is that everybody can choose their own path and everybody can service a different clientele and with a different direction as such. But to do that, you still need to be able to make the choices based on the right information. So if you choose not to do something, you have to have a good reason why not to do it.
Exactly. One of the things we've seen with some of the companies that are doing mentoring with gyms is what we think is an excessive focus on the business side of the gym. And while that's important, business needs, gym needs to make money, gym needs to stay open. Mm-hmm. And certainly with kids programs, we need to direct people in the business side of things, because oftentimes
you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, so oftentimes it's neglected. But one of the things that attracted me to you when I first started seeing you on Instagram and following was the idea that the customer experience was really important to maintaining people, that the coaching was important, and that the coaching was directed toward the client that is before them, those kind of things. And I thought that that method, that idea speaks to me, speaks to us of being a good coach, being somebody that cares about your clients enough to be invested in their success is really important. So kind of expand, please, on your philosophy and your method of helping coaches understand the importance of client experience and important of and working toward that.
Well, I think it all starts with, just like we talked about the mission and the vision for the affiliates as such. For our members, we have to understand their why, and not their surface why, like want to lose 5 kilos or whatever it might be, but understand why are they there in that moment. And that why could be a very deep running why that you might not realize what it is for a couple of years after working with them. But you also need to realize what they want in that moment, because if you don't give them what they want, they're not going to be open to anything else. Yeah, they're not going to be open for what they need. So they want to be, I'm going to give an example. They want to finish the workout and feel like they're dying on the floor in a heap of sweat and things like that. That's what they want. That's what they came here for in that moment. If we don't give them that, we don't build up the relationship with them to the point where they're ready to listen to what they need, sleep, nutrition, different choices on the weekend, things like that. And so this is all part of building the relationship, is understanding the why, the wants, and then being able to give the needs, and also understanding what needs are appropriate to that person in that moment. I'm not going to tell somebody who's just returned 6 weeks after having a baby that they should be, counting calories or something like that, or they should be, why aren't they sleeping 8 hours a day? Yeah, you need to be very careful with how you tailor your advice to every single person by understanding the situation they're in at that moment. And this all comes back to, and it sounds really boring, it comes back to creating space within your lessons to be able to actually connect with people. And by that, I mean, we cannot blame programming or over-programming. We can blame the choices we make as coaches. We need to put moments and time in our lessons to make sure we have room to have those connections. And yeah, maybe we're not going to connect with every 14, 12 people, whatever is in the lesson for 5 lessons in a row, but we should over time be able to make more and more connections with our members and understand what they want and therefore what they need.
That makes so much sense. When we first opened a gym in 1999, we didn't do that.
We were successful.
We had other jobs and thought that just the sufficiency of every half hour, exactly. I mean, there wasn't even time to run to the restroom, so we did not build that time in. Now we were lucky that somehow we did those Friday night dinners next door at the delicious Mexican restaurant. It's called El Michoacan in Ramona. Shout out to them, because there was a lot of connection made there. But had we not done that, I think we would have had nothing for a very long time. And it was a learning process. We had some mentors. We started to realize that we needed to have that time and that we're always feeling rushed with conversations. And as you know, people don't like change. So then reworking a schedule became a little bit of a thing, but eventually we got there. So one of the things I want to say about that is how lucky are affiliates now that there are resources like you who can give them that information. They don't have to go back to 1999 and spend 5 years figuring stuff out, and then the next 5 years figuring out the next layer, that there are resources that can really help them get to the right place faster.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think in some ways we're unfortunate in the model of affiliates where everybody's allowed to do their own thing. And so there is quite a few coaches and affiliate owners out there who have never experienced what good coaching is. And therefore they're not aware of how far they might be away from good coaching. And then the other side, we have an ecosystem built on the backs of part-time coaches. And in those part-time coaches, you also have hobby coaches. So they're the ones who they enjoy it, but they don't see it as a career, and they don't want to invest in their own, they don't see it as professional, and therefore they won't invest in their own professional development. And so we're at that moment in the space where things are going to have to start changing if we're going to want to survive another 10, 15, 20 years. What I do notice, though, is that there's a new generation of affiliate owners coming in, especially after the last pandemic, who realize, you know what, I want to make sure I have my belts and braces on. I want to make sure my systems are in place. And so this newer generation are coming in, just sucking up all the information they can, everything that all the other people have learned, and being able to start from there. And that's where I think we're going to see in the coming years that there's possibly like a split between those who are stuck in the old way of doing things, as in, oh yeah, my coaches, I learned by doing it on the floor, my coaches can do that, it's all fine, everything's fine. That versus these affiliates that are going to have the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and are just going to excel.
I think there's a lot to unpack there. Going back to the early days of our 2003-ish, 2004-ish. If you wanted to learn or watch a movie on a clean or a snatch, it was a little MOV that was grainy, and you couldn't.
It's like a 1x1 square.
You couldn't blow it up any, and you just kind of had, and you couldn't slow it down. You had to just watch these things, and there was little or no information about how to do what we were doing, and we kind of just muddled through, and and now I look at, there's this overwhelming amount of information for coaches, and it's just all right there, and it's got to be frustrating. I know it is on the kids' side, but it's got to be frustrating for someone like you to go like, well, there's all this information on how to coach, there's all this information on how to run a good affiliate, I'm giving you all of these things, and then people turn around and go, well, I'm just going to go ahead and muddle through with the little MOV and try to and I'll just go ahead and build it myself. From our side, working with youth coaches, we see so many youth programs just stumbling along. Just, they have 5 or 6 kids, and they never really, and we've been through this. We have the information. We can help you take that next step. And it can almost be, just a weight kind of crushing down, going like, please let me help you.
Yeah, because I think you both are very similar to me. I really do want this ecosystem to be strong and sustainable. And I want affiliates to be healthy. And I feel like sometimes I'm somebody shouting about how fast food is bad for you just outside of McDonald's, and everyone is just walking past me. But I do have hope that more people are becoming more aware. And to be honest, I work with a very specific type of affiliate or coach, the ones who are willing to put the work in, the ones who are looking for more than just a quick fix. And there are enough out there that are willing to take the next step. But at the same time, it's very frustrating to watch the 95% of the others not realizing even how much easier their lives could be by simply reaching out either to yourselves or to someone else, myself, and asking for some help and not having to reinvent the wheel again.
So true.
I think there's enough affiliates out there realizing that things have to change. But it is so frustrating, like you experience, when you realize that you could make people's lives much easier by simply them connecting, even with other people. It doesn't have to be me, it could be with anybody else. I think the bottom line is there's no point reinventing the wheel, no point reinventing the wheel. And that, I think, part of the problem is there's a lot of people in our space who are addicted to the grind, who think that the only way of succeeding is by putting hours and hours and hours in the gym, that they're the ones who should be on the floor and doing everything, and not realizing there's another way of doing this. There's another way of doing this that not only gives you freedom from with respect to time and money, but it creates positions and jobs for other people as well that they can make a living from, that in turn can just spread health and wealth to many more people. Because if all we do is keep this grind going, addiction to grind, we just burn out and everything fizzles away and nothing grows, and we're stuck in this space where we have the only people we want to hire are hobby coaches, or the only way we want to move forward is, by teaching another random kids class without having figured out that kids are, as you said before, kids are not small adults and things like that. And in turn, just wasting so much time and energy on something that could have been really successful.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of anxiety. I think there were so many years at least in the CrossFit world, of everything being figured out, do it your own way without any guidance. But there are a lot of people that just think that it's sort of, well, I have to live through the fire. I have to do it that way first. And I have to get to the point where I'm just too anxious to cede any control to anybody else and delegate. I'm scared because I know this way, even though it may be harmful to me, I know it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of that sort of standing in one place.
Where you get backed into a corner where you can't raise prices, because if you lose even one person, now you're going to, there's all kinds of problems there. I also think that early on CrossFit, even with their business advice, but they didn't define words. So when you asked, and Greg said, you want to be successful, be a better coach. Well, or just be better. Well, just be better needs to be defined. What does that mean? What is, some people meant, well, now I need to clean my bathrooms more. No, or does it mean
virtuosity?
Or or does it need to be out? What does it actually mean? So giving people the actual, look, here are the goalposts. Here's the goalposts. Here's your North Star. Here's where you want to go. Here's the steps we need to take to get to those goalposts. They're very definitive about what you need to accomplish. How you accomplish those things are going to be different for everybody, but we can't be fuzzy if we want to be successful with our language and with our thought process.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, Jeff. The just be better mantra, it can go in any direction. At the end of the day, we're here to make positive impacts on people's lives and longevity. Maybe that's the only thing we should be measuring by better. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we need to get more members through our doors? Or does it mean that the members who are in our doors make substantial progress in various markers or whatever? Does it mean that we should be doing outreach programs? Does it mean that we should be viewing ourselves as non-medical healthcare professions, for example? And I think it's a really interesting discussion that has to be had in this space of what is this just be better.
So do I. I think it rolls down to, as a community, defining what those words mean. What does it mean to be better? And what does it mean to provide a better product for our clients?
I think that's an interesting discussion in itself, is what is the product that we are offering? What is it in the end of the day that we are selling our clients? And how do we guarantee that they actually approve of that product, or they feel that it is worthwhile? And I don't think we've really had that discussion, because although there are now examples of good quality lessons and things like that, it's never truly been defined of what is this exceptional member experience that we want to deliver. How are we going to measure it in the short and the long term? I mean, I know from the business perspective, you can think of average revenue per member and the length of engagement and things like that, but they're very much business terms and they're not looking at the person themselves, the member themselves. And I'm definitely intrigued to have discussions with more people of how can we define that? How can we measure those things?
I think globally, one of the things with kids programs, when I ask a kids program, what are you providing? What is it that you are giving to the kids? One of their responses almost always coming out of the CrossFit world is, well, we're going to have the kids have fun. And then I say, well, the Brand X method, we are going to increase a child's physical literacy. We're going to teach them how to move well, and we're going to make them strong. Those three things. And I try to talk to people and say, look, no parent is going to pay over years for their child to come have fun. Yes, fun needs to be part of your program. It just inherently has to be fun.
Mm-hmm. It's an aspect. It's not a goal.
It's not a goal. But you need to be able to say, here's what we're doing. Here's, and I'm going to do those three things, and we're going to increase strength. So when we get into teen years, we have in our programming, we have a defined strength program where we're able to go back to the parent every 3 to 6 months and go, here's how much your child has increased their speed, here's their strength. Here's how fast they're running now. Here's how high they're jumping. Here's how that will impact the sport that they're playing. And so we can give them a measured, or we're beginning to come to some way of giving a parent measured outcomes for their child.
Obviously, they want it to be an enjoyable experience, but that's really different than also having long-term goals.
It needs to be. And when you talk about just a program is fun versus a program has measurable outcomes that we're trying to accomplish, one is an activity. Parents will pay for an activity for a while. But if they're seeing measurable outcomes, and if you're able to present to the parent these measurable outcomes, you keep them, you retain them. And if we go back to the business side, we all know that retention is better than trying to acquire a new client. So when we look at, having over 100 kids that were with us longer than 5 years, or 40 kids, more than 40 kids that were with us longer than a decade or more, that's a sustainable long-term practice for our gyms.
I think definitely the measurable outcomes is an interesting discussion also in the adult space. For a long time, everyone's been focused on PR times for certain benchmarks or, lifts or things like that. But I think certainly an interesting move in the space is now CrossFit Medical and going with the markers that can be measured as such. So I'm intrigued to see how coaches and affiliates will adapt to this slight shift in the space of what measurable might mean in the next coming years. Because it could be that we're no longer we will always write down on the whiteboard, I suspect, people's PRs and ring the bell, but our analysis of somebody's progress and where we can help them most won't just be based on those measures of PR times and benchmarks as such. It'll be on other biomarkers and things like that, or how much sleep they have been getting, or how, various, I can imagine in the world coming up, there's going to be lots of different ways to measure everything with various devices. But I think there will be a shift in the space that we will have to move away from just looking at those benchmarks at what our outcomes are as an adult.
So for myself, working with the younger kids, it's never been that, what you're talking about.
Which is great. I love it.
Yeah, because it seems somewhat inappropriate while kids are actually learning movement patterns and understanding how their bodies work, just start giving them scores in a heavy-handed way. I mean, obviously there's some amount of that, but not in a heavy-handed way. Many of them didn't care at all about those things. And it was just sort of, I feel better than yesterday. I got to hang here with my friends. I had a little bit of fun and I mastered one thing. So very different than the PR model.
Years and years ago, this probably close to 10 years ago, we had a discussion with somebody and he said something that was really profound to me, that he said the adult model of fitness is a rehab model. People come to your gym, because the doctor said the cholesterol is too high, or that they're overweight, or they need to move, or they need to fix this problem. The whole model is rehab. And contrast that with the Brand X model, which is an opportunity model of fitness. And the opportunity model of fitness is we're teaching kids how to move well, getting them excited about moving well, getting them strong, and giving them an opportunity to express their physicality in any way that they want. And we see this now because we have people constantly writing to us going, I came through the program and I'm 26, 27 years old. This is what I'm doing now. This is how I'm expressing myself. And this is what I'm accomplishing. They're using the gym to provide opportunities for themselves outside of the gym. So when I look at where we're going, if we could fill the pipeline with those kids coming out of, so that the model became an opportunity model. Like, I'm coming to your gym because I want to be I really enjoy climbing. I want to get stronger at climbing. And now I want to come to the gym so I can work, so I can be, climbing more. Or I play soccer on the weekends or basketball on the weekends. I want to get better at those things. And versus I'm coming to the gym so my health markers could go down, could get better.
I think we may see a preventative model coming though.
Well,
because as things become acknowledged as these are really important. No, we're finding they're really important. You need to get outside. You need to do this much of this. You need this much BDNF flowing.
When I came to CrossFit, I came to CrossFit for a reason. And it was the only thing that was out there that was saying, look, you do these things in the gym to help you do other things that you want to do. And that's
be better at life.
And to be better at life. That is the kind of the mantra of the guiding star of what I stayed with CrossFit, even when it kind of CrossFit branched off into its own sport and did its own thing. But I really believe that we're kind of going to have two paths. One will be the people looking at more at health markers. What can I do to accomplish, to live better, and within those markers that we're looking at. And then the other side is that original idea of what the original promise of CrossFit. Do this so that you can do more.
I think certainly, so I can only speak of certain parts of Europe that I've dealings with, but in Europe, there's very much, Mikki, you said it, a lot of people join for preventative reasons more than anything else. Some even join to support a different sport. A lot of in the society here, a lot of the rehab stuff happens in your typical Globo sports schools at the moment, because that's what the doctors know and that's where they're pointed towards. And so I think there's a lot of groundwork to be done in educating more people that there are more ways to become healthier and fitter than just going to a sports school. And in fact, in the Netherlands, where I'm based, CrossFit boxes are classed as sports schools, but they're not a Globo gym. And so people come in expecting to see a Globo gym and they get everything but a Globo gym. And they're wondering, where are all the mirrors and the machines and everything? Because we haven't educated them enough here that, there are more ways to skin the cat to help people be healthier and find something and a lifestyle that is sustainable and that they can keep doing. And it's not that they're going to sign up for a 2-year contract in the first week of January, go for a month and then never come back again. So I think in that sense, Europe has a lot more opportunity to change the space and understanding of what fitness is.
You mentioned timelines there, which brought me back to something you said earlier about working with a client for years, which made me think about how important it is for, kind of applies to everything, but for affiliates to understand that to meet their mission, that they have to understand that what they're doing, working with you, working with us, working with a mentor, is an investment. All investments have time horizons. And to consider an investment without a reasonable time horizon is silliness. And we find so many people coming to it with, I'm going to test this for like 3 months. If it's not doing what I want it to do in 3 months, then I'm out.
Yeah. Well, I often say to them, going, did you learn how to snatch well in 3 months and doing everything else?
Maybe
They go,
I
oh
did.
yeah, no.
I've
No,
met
but
that person.
oh yeah, no, but and do everything else at the same time. Is that the only thing you're going to spend those 3 months doing? That's a different discussion
That's
than
true.
if they're going to do everything else. I agree with you. A lot of people forget that real change takes time and investment, that there is no magic pill to what we do. There is no quick fix. And unfortunately, there's enough people in the space who say things like, oh, sign up with me and I'll get you 100 new high ticket clients within 3 weeks or whatever the magic number is. And at the end of the day, all these quick fixes distract affiliate owners, and they think, oh, if that's what the quick fix is meant to be about, then I'm sure I can do something in 3 weeks. It'll be okay. And so I agree. There has to be recognition that if we truly believe in our mission, that mission isn't going to be achieved overnight, that it's going to take time and effort and consistency. And we're just going to have to keep at it and ask for help along the way.
The time horizon for youth programs is longer than an adult program.
I'm intrigued by that, because what do you see? And are there differences in the age groups?
There's a couple of things that I think that's really important to kind of talk about, kind of in contrast to what we see. But when you're working with a child comes into your gym 6 years old. That child changes physically, biologically. The child changes psychologically. The child changes socially.
Every 6 months.
Dramatically. Clearly an adult can change those things, but with this child, they're changing and you're shaping their life as they move forward. And one of the things we see is, like, with a heavy focus on fun as the kind of the guiding light with the youth, with the young kids, is then the kids become middle schoolers and high schoolers, become teenagers. And that program hasn't truly prepared them to step into a teen class and then to step from the teen class into the adult class. So what we see is somebody will have a big youth program, kids program, but then they don't have a big middle school and teen programs. They haven't truly prepared these kids to walk in seamlessly into the next class, both physically, both psychologically and socially. And one of the things that I thought was so wonderful about what Mikki did was, when we were developing our programming, was looking at what my entry to the teen program looked like and dovetailing her outcomes into that programming, so that these kids could have this long horizon of moving into success and progress through the program.
I think it's taken for granted, and it's obvious, and it's going to sound really trite for me to say it, but they're developing humans. So they are literally biologically, psychologically, socially developing still. That whole period that we have them as youth in our gym, they're developing. So if we don't look at it as we're teaching the movement patterns, and that's not, I think we spoke about this when we spoke with you last time, teaching movement, not a movement. So we're teaching movement itself to someone who is literally developing. So you have to think that has to be a long-term project, or you're not really teaching them. Like these speed camp for 4 weeks, and then that made my child an all-star. That didn't happen. That wasn't it. It needs to be understanding that they are literally changing and they're developing, and we have to follow that path, and we don't get to speed it up. No. It is what it is. It's biological. It's human development. They're not going to be there until now. They're saying 28 or something.
I think the idea of working with adult clients, we're helping. One way to look at it is, I'm helping that client, helping set them up for success, and however they define success. With children, we're doing exactly the same thing. It's just long period of time. And as a business person, if you look that you're doing a good job at this, you keep that child from the time they're 5 or 6 years old until they're 18. If you're showing them progression, if you have a nice pathway for success and progress, they just keep coming back. And of course, fun is involved in all of that. But
I think, and one of the biggest mistakes we see is, oh, they look like an adult now. Let's just go in the adult class because they look like one.
but our last,
But it's
our,
socially and otherwise they are further from that.
Right.
Yeah.
We just had we just spoke with somebody in Ireland, and we were comparing notes about working with teens and how both of our gyms, we had teens who actually competed with adults and won adult competitions and those kind of things. And how in both our cases, the teens had left and come back to the gym as, 18, 19 years old. You go, I want to go to the teen class because if I go to the adult class, I'm actually stepping down in what is being asked of me. And it's just interesting. When I talk to gyms and they say I want to put my teens into the adult class, we can talk about the all of the problems with doing that psychosocially, but also I tell them there's a couple things. Number one, if your teens go into the adult class, then the younger kids have no one to look up to.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost that mentor stage. And number two, the teens that we worked with could outperform most of the adults. And so we could raise the bar in ways in the teen class that we couldn't in the adult class.
Well, the adults didn't have the benefit of developing
Right.
with a program that developed with them.
Yeah, they didn't learn in the same way. Because I think I've mentioned, because what I really find so useful about your method and your approach is this whole teaching movement as opposed to teaching a movement. Because often CrossFit coaches, they go to their CrossFit level 1 and you get your 9 fundamental movements and stuff like that. And it's a movement that you are teaching. And there are specific points of performance. And it's like tick the box, as opposed to, okay, let's get this person moving and let's get them trying to do a hinge. And like, I love your waiting in the outfield and those type of strategies, because they're also useful for adults who've never really formally done these movements. Or maybe the last time they did these movements was 30 years ago when they were playing outside with their friends and they haven't done anything since. And that's why I think if an affiliate, and I think you mentioned this as well, if you don't have a clear path through your lessons, and in that sense also a clear theme of how you're going to handle it, I think it'd be very hard to make the transitions. And I think also it's a very good point you made about the lost mentor stage of the teens, because this rang a bell with me with my sailing experience, because even so I spent every free moment on the water racing, and the people who taught us, the first ones who taught us, were the ones who were 18 and 19, and they were also racing, and they were our role models. And it was so important for us to have role models who were closer in our age than just the coach who's like 28, 30. I think they probably felt like I felt they were like 50, but I think they were just in their 20s. But it's so important to have those role models as well for all the kids as such, so they have something to work towards. And I think that definitely is not considered by a lot of affiliates, I think.
No, they'll get a parent that says, my daughter really wants to be in class with me. And they don't ask the daughter separately if that's actually true, first of all. They just go,
they may want to be with them once
because it's easier for them, and they have another client.
We came out of the martial arts, or Brand X came out of a martial arts background. And one of the things we saw and still see in the martial arts background is these gyms that are these clubs that have huge youth programs, the 50, 60, 70 kids who are, under the age of 12. Then their adult program. And they have 3 kids in their adult class. And you say, where's your next step? Where's the teen class? That we don't have that. So they haven't prepared the kids to move from that youth martial arts experience to the adult martial arts experience. They don't have any segue, the middle school or teen group. And a lot of kids will just look at an adult experience, look at an adult class and go, I don't want to be part of that. I'm scared of that. And secondarily, if you have a 15-year-old who may not have had success as an athlete, and they walk through the door and they say, well, the only class we have here is the adult class. They won't start. So you really need to have the youth program. You really need to have the ability to have a strong youth program that sets up for the strong teen program, which then allows the kids to move into the adult program seamlessly.
And that's not to say sometimes it's very effective to start with a teen program and then it moves in both directions.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I suppose it probably depends on maybe your affinity to a specific age group or what you think your affinity is to a specific age group first. Is that what you find? Or
Oh, that matters a lot, but it also matters what your community has. So if you have a community with 30 parents who are all saying we want a class for 5-year-olds,
yeah, you're not going to put one.
That's an opportunity, but or vice versa with teens, right? You're next to a school, a high school, and they've got sport teams that need strength and conditioning, or and usually, as Jeff says, we pick the sports that don't already have a strength and conditioning coach, like lacrosse, volleyball, soccer. So those teams might be looking for that. So it really depends on all of those logistics and things.
So when you start to mentor with it, I'm switching gears.
Okay.
You start to mentor with a program and you talk about the North Star. Let's your vision statement, your mission statement. That's the first step. What can you give me maybe 2 or 3 steps, next steps for affiliates if they were working with you? What would be the next 2 or 3 steps that you would take with them?
Defining explicitly what their exceptional member experience is going to be.
Awesome.
Yeah. Writing it down, and not just vaguely, but really writing it down in detail. And from there, the next step is then, okay, what observable coaching practices will deliver that exceptional experience? Because lots of people are like going, oh yeah, the trainer comes prepared to class. I'm going, how do you see that the trainer's prepared to class? Or the trainer has thought about different adaptations. Like, well, how do you see on the outside that the trainer has thought about these things? So that's why I try and get them into the whole loop of, okay, what can you observe from the outside and how can you measure it? So it can't be subjective. It has to be really measurable things to make it really clear to everybody involved, this is the expectation. Because if your trainers or coaches know what's expected of them and you can measure that thing, then you know how far they are from it and you know how to help them and to get to the next step. One of the other things I do is get them to prioritize their expected coaching practices, because then you could also kind of create a career path for their coaches. So, okay, as an intern, we expect you to be able to do these things. As a trainer, we expect you to do these things. As a senior trainer, we expect you not only to do these things, but also do all these things. So it gives a development path to the trainers, to the coaches. Because I think if people think, oh, I'm done, I'm a trainer now, I'm finished, then I think as an ecosystem, we're a bit lost. Yeah, because our members will keep growing. And if we don't grow along with our members, they're going to surpass us and then they'll leave and they'll go find something else that will meet their wants, that will challenge them. They won't stay with us. So that's why we have to kind of keep ahead of them the whole time. So, but that's generally the next few steps I take with them, Jeff.
Those are wonderful steps. I think really making people think it through. We have a similar thing with be the parent walking into the gym, and what do you see? How is it obvious to you, to the parent, that you care about their children? If you don't even have any sign that children have ever entered this gym, that's not positive.
Yeah. But that's it. I think you do it great as well. It's like you have to put yourself in the shoes of the client, the shoes of the customer. You have to do that. And not just one type of customer, all the different types. Because I know what I think is an exceptional class is, nearly 50-year-old woman is very different to what my 13-year-old son might think. It's very different to the 80-year-old grandmother, very different to the 20-year-old fire-breathing rower. Yeah. And we have to think about all these different aspects. And from that come to, okay, this is what our exceptional member experience looks like. This is what we're aiming for.
We put together a document a while back with 10 different profiles of the top 10 parenting profile with parenting people that might enter your gym. The parent of a sedentary child, the parent of a sport child, the parent who had terrible sports experiences and really needs to be convinced, the parent of kids who are just very shy, the parent of a special needs child, every one of those is, as you say, it's individual. They're looking for a different customer experience, and it will mean everything how you present that or don't. I think sometimes people go, well, we don't do anything bad. And they might not, but they also don't do anything that engages and creates joy for that customer.
I love the idea wording of an exceptional customer experience.
Yeah. Because good isn't that good.
No.
That much good.
But it's also, we should strive for exceptional. We should strive for virtuosity.
Right.
We should keep striving for better.
No one's mission statement just says good. Or shouldn't.
Well, I think there are some very vague mission statements out there that probably have the word good. But yeah.
Well, if they don't have fine, I want them to have a fine experience.
I want to have a fair, Jim.
Well, I'm from Ireland, so we say, if you ask me how it's going, I will always say grand. That could mean it's good, it's bad, it's atrocious, everything. So as long as you're having a grand experience, that's okay. So
Farran, we're doing a new thing. We'd like to ask the question: what is the question, since you've done a lot of podcasts, what is the question that you've never been asked, that you've always wanted to be asked, you always wanted to be asked and answered?
So this has never been asked on a podcast. I have one.
Okay. We'd like to hear it. We'd like to hear your answer to it.
Okay. The question I've never been asked on a podcast is, where does my first name come from? So a lot of people think that, especially I'm based in the Netherlands, I'm from Ireland originally. So a lot of the Dutch people assume that Farran is a traditional Irish name or something. But I've only met one other Farran in this entire world, and I actually met that Farran on LinkedIn, of all places. But my name is, I was slightly premature as such. My parents hadn't picked out a name, and then life happens, and newborn baby boot camp and everything, and they still hadn't picked out a name. And my mum was looking through a book of names and came across this word Farran, and it meant it's derived from German to travel. And they said, right, let's go for it. So yeah, that's where my name came from, a book at the end of the day. It has no traditional Irish meaning in the big sense of things, and it's not a common name, and I've met only one other person with it. So there we go.
That's fantastic. I would have exactly assumed that Farran was a traditional Irish name. Absolutely.
Yeah, probably heard it 10 times before.
Right.
So you're unique. Yep. That's a lovely thing.
It is. Although sometimes certainly as when I was younger, it felt like a bit of a curse because I was the only Farran. It was very clear. If anybody was talking about Farran, it was definitely about me. Because in Ireland, there's a lot of Aoifes and Siobhans and stuff like that. So you could be talking about anybody. But now I really do appreciate it. I appreciate having my own unique name.
That's awesome.
Thank you for being on our podcast. Once again, that was a nice, lively conversation with a lot.
Oh, thank you so much, guys.
Youth need great coaches now more than ever. Brand X has dedicated themselves to doing what is best for kids for over 2 decades and now offers mentoring, education, programming, and resources in one smart package to empower coaches to efficiently deliver world-class youth programs. Check out their plug-and-play options and join the Brand X family today. You plus Brand X equals youth program success.
Welcome to the Athlete Coach Network, a new connection-based training platform that breaks down regional barriers and connects coaches and athletes anytime, anywhere. You're an athlete and love to push yourself. Who's guiding you? As an athlete, you can filter and search our library to find the perfect coach, or sign up for a membership to get video feedback and comments from our coaches all over the world. As a coach, you can set up your profile and advertise your credentials, set your own price for video reviews or direct messaging to ensure your rates reflects the value of your time. Welcome to the Athlete Coach Network, and welcome to the future of sports coaching.
That was the Youth Fitness Podcast, topics on youth fitness with focus on doing what's best for kids. Brought to you by the Martin family, the developers of the Brand X method. and the Athlete Coach Network. We hope you guys enjoyed that episode and you listen for more.